Before now, an agency, one of the anti-corruption agencies, the AFCC to be specific, has been in the news almost every other day. But now it seems to have been quiet lately. We know that Magu himself has been facing that tough time with the senators on whether or not he should be confirmed as the substantial EFCC chairman. To what extent has that, to this point, derailed, or should I say hamper, the fight against corruption?
Honestly, I'm happy you raised this point. You see, when you have uncertainties in the leadership of a body like EFCC, it does not help anybody. Don't forget, one, the issue of the confirmation of Magu that is still pending.
It hasn't blown away.
Well, it can't go away. But I'm even surprised that the government has not done what they did to ICPC to EFCC.
That being?
They have removed the head of ICPC because allegations were also made by the Ministry of Justice against him. So why wouldn't you remove? You see, it creates doubts. Magu may be a very good person, but that's not the point. Once the Senate has refused to confirm him, there's no point. I'm sure there are other capable people. That's one. Then you have the question of the problem between the EFCC and the Attorney General. The sort of some form of, I won't call it rivalry because the Attorney General is the head, but they don't seem to agree. Those in the ministry and those in the EFCC. But that is not a surprise until we have an Attorney General that is not a political appointee, that is not answerable to the president or to the government of the day. You're not going to make good progress. Everywhere in the world that they fight corruption, all the prosecuting agencies fall under an Attorney General who is independent. He's not an appointee of the government. Recently, I'm happy that they have tried to separate the two on paper so far in the National Assembly. They have separated them. But you must have the Minister of Justice, who is the legal advisor to the government of the day.
So does that mean that if that doesn't happen, you can or we can never have them or whoever occupies that position to perform creditably well?
Look at all those who have held that position. Well, let me not say all, but look at most of those who have held that position. Look at where they have come, their background, where they've come from. They are political party legal advisors or agents, and they've been brought in there. And let us be sincere to ourselves. You cannot find an Attorney General or a Minister of Justice appointed by the President going against the wishes of the President.
How do you mean that? Because they are lawyers, they're professionals. The law is the law. So what changes if you separate both offices?
A lot changes, a lot. Because like I said, if you have a separate Attorney General who is independent of this, when allegations are made, the Attorney General immediately steps in without waiting for anybody. For example, I'll give you two. The one about the money in Osborne. In any other society, the Attorney General will step in immediately, doesn't even wait for the presidency or anybody. Even the allegation now about NMPC, for example, the Attorney General in a normal society would have stepped in to conduct an investigation into those allegations made. You don't wait for the executive. That's the difference. This is what happens in every other country in the world where you have proper rule of law. But here, it's so intertwined. Everything is so political. And that is why we don't make much progress. Decisions, is he a party man? We all do know that most people, politicians, who they are, they face allegations, they switch parties. Today they go to the ruling party. Tomorrow they go to another party. And they seem to be saved from prosecution. It's there for everybody to see.
In this situation where the wings, as it were, of the EFCC seems to have been clipped to a point. How much of that will speak to the possibility that more corruption is happening in this government than would have been checked?
Well, you see, the current EFCC, you know very well, each time the EFCC boss goes to see the president on any matter, they go to see the president. I mean, shouldn't be. The perception it creates to people is that, oh, when he goes to see the president or the attorney general, they tell him, okay, lay this down. Yesterday, we read in the papers about the presidency, for example, having a meeting with the chairman of the Senate committee set up to investigate the NMPC allegations. It shouldn't happen. It creates a wrong impression, or the perception is that, which may not be right, that the president is trying to influence the outcome of that. In fact, that was the suggestion in this day yesterday, that the president is trying to play down on their finding or whatever they will find so that they don't come hard on the MD of. It shouldn't happen. These things are the executive should have no influence at all. We all read about USA, we read about UK every day. We can do those things. But our constitution prevents that happening because the constitution links the Attorney General to the Ministry of Justice, and it's the president that appoints, and the person is answerable to the president.
But is it okay? Is it okay that the president himself is the Minister for Petroleum Resources in this country? Well,
from what we are seeing now, it is not the best thing to do. It is not the best. The president has so much in his hands to do. And in the situation where, like we are in now, our president has not been the best of health. Obviously, I don't think he does have enough time to even oversee what happens there. And I think it's in the best interest of himself and also of the nation that a substantive Minister of Petroleum is appointed. From what we've heard from these allegations by Kachuku and so on, the GMD goes straight to the president or goes to the chief of staff. Nobody knows what the correct thing is. Perhaps when the investigation is conducted by the Senate, we will get to know all the facts. But I think it's important to have an independent or a separate Minister of Petroleum.
There's a need, from all that you've submitted, there's a need for a holistic shake-up in order to move ahead in the fight against corruption. So how would you say it should begin, besides the substantive Minister of Petroleum? What are the shake-up, or what are the steps should be taken to ensure that this war against corruption is back on track?
Well, it's mostly, when you look at all the prosecuting agencies, they are under political control. And so long as they remain under political control, you won't have much doing. Let's look at the IG of police, for example. He's answerable to the president. He's not answerable to anybody else. Now, there has been allegations against him. Nobody has said a word. Whereas if we had, in fact, when we talk about the structure is not just the economic or political restructure administration. I've said it here before, we need to restructure the entire justice delivery and service system if we must achieve something. Restructure in such a way that the politicians don't have any form of control over that justice delivery system. It goes from the appointment of judges. You have to have a proper means of appointment of judges and appoint the right people. In the UK, you cannot be a judge of the High Court if you're not a QC, for example, which is equivalent to SN here. You cannot be a judge. Here is the opposite.
Well, speaking about judges, I mean, have the judges entirely been cleaned? Because we've seen some of the actions recently taken by the CJ, and doesn't this underscore the narrative that the executive had always pushed?
Well, you see, I always say this: a huge majority of the judges we have are very good and are doing their job. But you have a small minority, which obviously come from the same society that we all come from.
Should we even have that minority?
Well, no, we shouldn't. But again, it depends on the way they are appointed. It all boils down to, if you appoint the wrong person there, when he gets there, he will still do the same thing he was doing when he was in practice.
So does that mean that the system doesn't have capacity to check those things, even if a wrong person comes in the saddle?
Well, it does. If the person is found out, don't forget that most judges, unless some of the lawyers go to them, there will be no corruption.
So that's a part of the problem?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, we can't run away from that. A number of lawyers do that. They collude with some of the judges to do what they do. I mean, most lawyers are very good, but you still have the same lawyers. It's the same society that they come from. You see, don't forget that I'm sure when all of you went to school, including me, we learned civics. Civics is your obligation to the society, your obligation to the state, and the state's obligation to you. You learn so much so that if things are going wrong, you know what to do, and you can call people to order. But I understand that for many years now, civics are not taught. Civics subject is not taught in schools. So most people grow up not knowing what their obligations are. For them, it's just free for all. And it affected most things that we do in this country. And I think we need to. When we talk about the structure, we need to restructure our educational system. So many things that need to be done for us to get where we are. We will get there, I believe, someday, but we need to get started.
Okay, then. So we'll have to anchor at that point. But just also point out that I think the ICPC chair, his tenure actually elapsed. So he spent 6 years. So he handed over to, I think, one Abdullahi. So not that he was redeployed.
He had the right. He also could have been his tenure could have been renewed. Oh yes, but there was allegations by the Ministry of Justice against him.
All right, we appreciate you coming on, Mr. Zik Obi, a legal practitioner. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Thank you very much.